A housekeeper thought that sprawling mansions only hid luxury until she started working in one filled with dark secrets. Everything changed when she noticed the millionaire's new wife's strange behavior and the mysterious restrictions on the backyard garden. Upon discovering a terrifying truth, she found herself caught between danger and the need to reveal what was happening. If this story grabbed you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us what city you're watching from. Let's get into it. I promise this will be the best story you'll ever hear. Lauren Miller had never imagined that a simple job could change her life in such a profound and terrifying way. At 32, a single mother to an 8-year-old boy, she needed that job more than anything. The ad had appeared on a job site on a Friday afternoon, just when she was about to give up on finding anything decent. Housekeeper for a mansion in an exclusive neighborhood. Above-average salary. Experience preferred, but not required. Immediate start. The interview had been quick, almost rushed, and the salary offered was too generous for a housekeeping position. But Lauren didn't ask questions. She couldn't afford to question her luck when it finally knocked on her door. The mansion was on the Upper East Side, one of New York City's most exclusive neighborhoods, where townhouses hid behind high walls and electronic gates. On her first day of work, a rainy Monday in September, Lauren felt the weight of the place as soon as she passed through the main gate. It was an imposing 3-story structure with impeccably manicured gardens and an Italian marble fountain at the entrance. The exterior walls were clad in light-colored stone, and the enormous windows reflected the grey sky of that morning. Everything there breathed money, power, and a coldness that seemed to emanate from the very walls. Lauren clutched the strap of her worn purse as she climbed the steps to the main entrance. She had chosen her best outfit, simple black pants and a neatly pressed white blouse, trying to look presentable for this world that was not her own. The intercom buzzed twice before someone answered. A firm, warmthless female voice said only, "Come in." The gate opened with an electronic hum. She was greeted by Mrs. Valerie Montgomery, the wife of the homeowner. Valerie was around 40 with brown hair always pulled, back in a perfect bun, designer clothes and a smile that never reached her eyes. She wore a flawless beige pantsuit, high heels that echoed on the marble floor, and an expensive perfume that left a trail as she walked. Her eyes were light brown, almost golden, and there was something about them that unsettled Lauren. A calculated coldness, as if she were always evaluating, always measuring, always looking for flaws. "Welcome, Lauren," Valerie said in a monotone voice, extending a cold, dry hand for a brief handshake. "I hope you found the address without any trouble." "I did, ma'am." "Thank you so much for the opportunity." Valerie nodded and began to lead her through the main rooms, explaining the cleaning routine with almost military precision. The house was huge, much larger than it looked from the outside. Each room seemed to have been decorated by a different designer. The main living room had soaring ceilings, with a crystal chandelier that must have cost more than Lauren would earn in 10 years. The walls were covered with abstract art, and the white leather sofas looked like they had never been used. The dining room held a table for 20 all, made of dark, fine wood, with chairs upholstered in red velvet. The kitchen was spacious and modern, with state-of-the-art appliances that Lauren didn't even know how to operate. Valerie quickly explained how each one worked, but her instructions were too fast, as if she were in a hurry to finish the tour. There was a pantry the size of the apartment where Lauren lived with her son, filled with food organized by category, all with dated labels and arranged on glass shelves. "I'm very particular about organization," Valerie said as she ran a finger along a shelf checking for dust. "I expect you to be as well. I don't tolerate sloppiness." "Of course, ma'am, I'll do my best." "Good, let's continue." They passed through the library, a cozy space with floor-to-ceiling wooden shelves filled with books that seemed more decorative than read. There was an antique desk in a corner, with a bronze lamp and some framed photographs. Lauren tried to look at the photos, but Valerie hurried her along to the next room. During the initial tour, Lauren noticed that Valerie carefully avoided an entire wing of the house. When they passed the hallway leading to the 3rd floor, her employer visibly quickened her pace and said firmly that the area was off-limits. "Renovations," she explained, without looking at Lauren. Structural issues that need to be addressed. No one is to go up there under any circumstances. Is that clear? Yes, ma'am. Crystal clear. But the explanation sounded strange to Lauren. There was no sound of construction, no workers coming or going, no building materials piled up. The silence that emanated from that staircase was heavy, almost oppressive. Lauren felt a chill run up her spine, but she said nothing. It was her first day. She couldn't start by asking inconvenient questions. The first few days were quiet, though lonely. The routine was simple but tiring. Lauren woke up at 6 in the morning, prepared breakfast for the couple, cleaned the kitchen, organized the bedrooms, vacuumed the living rooms, cleaned the bathrooms, and handled the laundry. The work was constant, but she didn't mind. She was used to working hard. What bothered her was the silence of that house. It was an unnatural silence, as if even the air was afraid to make a sound. Lauren rarely saw the owner of the house, Mr. Adrian Montgomery, a tech entrepreneur, who spent most of his time locked in his office or traveling for work. He was a tall man with broad shoulders, graying hair at the temples, and a perpetually tired air. His eyes were blue, but dull, as if they had lost the ability to see beauty in the world. The few times they crossed paths in the hallway, he greeted Lauren with a brief, almost absent nod, as if she were part of the furniture. His voice was deep and polite, but distant. "Good morning, Lauren. Is everything going well with your work?" "Everything's great, sir, thank you." He would give a slight smile and continue on his way, always with a briefcase under his arm, always with his phone pressed to his ear, always in a hurry. Lauren realized that Adrian lived in his own bubble, completely disconnected from what was happening around him. He didn't pay attention to the house's decor, didn't notice if the paintings were crooked, didn't see if the flowers in the entryway arrangement were wilting. He seemed like a man who had given up on living and was just going through the basic motions of existence. Valerie, on the other hand, was always present. She moved through the house with silent steps, wearing soft-soled shoes that made no noise on the marble. She would appear at the most unexpected moments, always observing, always inspecting, always finding some detail that could be improved. It was as if she were testing the new housekeeper, looking for flaws, waiting for her to make a mistake that would justify a scolding or even dismissal. "Lauren, this glass still has fingerprints on it. Wash it again." "Lauren, the dining room napkin is poorly folded. Redo it." "Lauren, the vase in the entryway is 2 inches off-center. Fix it." Lauren felt Valerie's cold gaze fixed on her back as she worked. It made her nervous, but she tried to maintain her composure. She needed this job. She needed the money to pay her overdue rent, to buy her son's school supplies, to put food on the table. She couldn't afford to lose this chance. At night, when she finally retreated to her small room at the back of the house, Lauren would call her son on her cell phone. Ryan stayed with his maternal grandmother during the week, and Lauren only saw him on weekends. The boy always asked when she was coming home, and Lauren always promised it would be soon. The conversations were short, because Lauren had to save her phone minutes, but they were enough to remind her why she was doing all this. "Mom, when are you going to pick me up?" "Soon, sweetie. Mommy has to work to get nice things for you." "Do you love me?" "More than anything in this world, Ryan. Never forget that." After hanging up, Lauren would lie in the dark, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of loneliness crush her chest. But she couldn't afford to be weak. She had a mission, she had a purpose, and she would do whatever it took to give her son a better life. It was in the 3rd week that Lauren started hearing the sounds. It was always at night, after Valerie and Adrian had retired to their quarters on the 2nd floor. Lauren slept in a small room at the back of the house, near the laundry room, with a window that overlooked the side garden. The room was simple but clean, with a twin bed, a small wardrobe, and a desk where she kept her few personal belongings. Around 2 in the morning, she would wake up to a muffled noise coming from above. It wasn't the sound of footsteps or furniture being moved. It was something more subtle, more disturbing. A low moan, almost imperceptible, as if someone were crying or trying to speak through a thick wall. The sound was coming from the 3rd floor, the off-limits wing. The first time, Lauren thought she was dreaming. She turned over in bed and tried to go back to sleep, pulling the blanket up to her chin. But the sound repeated the next night, and the one after. Always at the same time, always from the same direction. It was a pattern. Someone up there was trying to communicate, or was suffering, or was asking for help. Lauren sat up in bed, her heart racing, her ears alert. She was sure now. There was someone on the third floor, someone who wasn't supposed to be there or who didn't want to be found. But who? And why? During the day, Lauren tried to investigate discreetly. She started paying more attention to the details of the house, to the whispered conversations between Valerie and the few visitors who came. So one morning, while cleaning the living room, she overheard Valerie on the phone. Her employer was on the patio, her back to the house, but her voice carried through the glass door. "Yes, doctor. The dosage needs to be increased. She's getting agitated again." There was a pause as the person on the other end spoke. "I don't care about the side effects. I need her to be calm. I need her to be quiet." Another pause. "Money is not an issue. Do whatever is necessary." When Valerie realized Lauren was nearby, she ended the call abruptly and entered the room with a stern expression. "You have work to do, Lauren," she said coldly. "I don't pay you to stand around eavesdropping on private conversations." "I'm sorry, Mom. I was just cleaning." "Then clean in silence." Lauren lowered her head and went back to work, but the phrase echoed in her mind. Medication, dosage, side effects, agitation. What was Valerie trying to control? And who was being medicated in that house without their consent? The answer began to take shape when Lauren found a forgotten photograph in a library drawer. She was organizing the books, following Valerie's detailed instructions on how each volume should be placed, when a desk drawer was left slightly ajar. Inside were some old letters, yellowed receipts, and a color photograph, faded with time. It was a picture from at least 10 years ago, showing an elderly woman next to a younger, smiling Adrian. The lady had white hair tied in an elegant bun, kind honey-colored eyes, and a warm smile that lit up her whole face. She wore a floral dress and held Adrian's arm affectionately, while he looked at her with an expression of genuine love that Lauren had never seen on her. Employer's face. On the back of the photo, someone had written in delicate, slightly shaky handwriting, "Eleanor and Adrian, 60th birthday, March 15th, 2013. Lauren examined the photograph carefully, feeling something stir inside her. Eleanor, Adrian's mother. She had never been mentioned in the house, not by Valerie, not even by Adrian himself. It was as if this woman had never existed, as if she had been erased from the family's history. Lauren put the photo back in the drawer and continued her work, but she couldn't get that image out of her head. Where was Eleanor? Why did no one talk about her? Why did Adrian never mention his mother? She started asking discreet questions to the vendors who came to the mansion. The grocery delivery man, a portly, friendly gentleman named Mario, had known the neighborhood for over 20 years. The gardener, Rosa, a middle-aged black woman with calloused hands and an easy smile, had worked in the area forever. The security system technician, a young, talkative guy named Brandon, had been installing alarms in Upper East Side homes since he graduated. They all knew the story of Eleanor Montgomery. She had been a respected figure in the neighborhood, a woman with a strong personality and a generous heart, who had raised Adrian alone after her husband's premature death in a car accident. Eleanor worked as a piano teacher, giving lessons at home, and had managed to provide a decent life for her son. Adrian grew up respectful, studious, and determined. He got a degree in computer engineering, started his own tech company, and became wealthy quickly. He bought that mansion for his mother, promising she would never have to work again. But for the past couple of years, no one had seen her. Rosa said she used to chat with Eleanor while tending the garden, and that the elderly woman always offered her coffee and cake. Then one day, out of the blue, Valerie appeared and said her mother-in-law was undergoing long-term treatment out of state, something related to her mental health. Rosa found it strange because Eleanor had always been lucid and healthy, but Valerie was firm. Her mother-in-law needed specialized care and would not be receiving visitors. Mario said that Eleanor always insisted on receiving the grocery deliveries personally, checking if the products were fresh and chatting about recipes. After Valerie took control of the How's everything changed? Deliveries were now made at the gate with no human contact. Valerie made it clear she didn't want to get friendly with the vendors. Brandon, the security tech, said something that made Lauren's blood run cold. He had installed new cameras in the mansion about a year ago at Valerie's request, but she made a strange demand. She didn't want cameras on the third floor. She said the area was under renovation and the cameras would be installed later. But they never were. Brandon found it odd, but he didn't question it. After all, who was he to interfere in his client's decisions? Lauren absorbed all this information like pieces of a macabre puzzle. Every conversation, every casual comment, every seemingly insignificant detail fit into a disturbing narrative. Eleanor wasn't in treatment. Eleanor was here in this house on the third floor. And Valerie was doing everything she could to keep her hidden. But why? What was Valerie's motive for imprisoning her own mother-in-law? Money? Power? Control over Adrian? And Adrian himself, did he really believe his mother was fine? Or did he know the truth and simply choose to ignore it because the reality was too heavy to bear? Lauren couldn't accept any of these possibilities. She needed to know the truth. She needed to see with her own eyes what was happening on the third floor. And more importantly, she needed to help Eleanor if she was even still alive. The answer came on a rainy October night. Lauren had worked late that day, helping prepare for a dinner party Valerie was hosting for some of Adrian's colleagues. They were tech executives, men in suits who talked about investments, mergers, and acquisitions while drinking expensive French wine. Valerie was radiant, playing the perfect hostess, smiling, charming everyone with her calculated elegance. Adrian, as always, was physically present but emotionally absent. When she finally retreated to her room, exhausted, Lauren couldn't sleep. The rain beat hard against the windows, and thunder shook the mansion's structure. The wind howled outside, making the garden trees dance frantically. It was then that she heard it again. The moan. Louder this time, almost desperate, cutting through the silence of the night like a knife. Lauren shot up in bed, her heart pounding. She knew she shouldn't go to the third floor. She knew she was violating Valerie's express orders. She knew she could lose her job, or worse. But something stronger than fear pushed her forward. She had to know. She had to understand what was happening in that house. She had to look the truth in the eye, no matter how terrifying it might be. Barefoot, so as not to make a sound, Lauren opened her bedroom door and stepped into the dark hallway. The mansion was plunged into silence, except for the drumming of the rain and the distant rumble of thunder. She climbed the stairs to the second floor, passing Valerie and Adrian's quarters, where a sliver of light under the door indicated that one of them might still be awake. Lauren held her breath and kept climbing toward the forbidden third floor. The hallway was shrouded in darkness, lit only by flashes of lightning that burst through the high windows. Lauren moved slowly, her hands trembling, her heart beating so hard it felt like it would jump out of her chest. There were 3 doors along the corridor. 2 were open, revealing empty rooms filled with dust and furniture draped in white sheets. The 3rd door at the end of the hall was locked, from the outside with a thick, sturdy padlock. Lauren approached the locked door and pressed her ear to the wood. The sound was coming from there, a muffled, broken cry, full of despair and resignation. The cry of someone who had given up on being heard, but who still couldn't stop asking for help. She tried the doorknob, but it was locked from the outside. Her stomach churned. Someone was trapped in there, someone who couldn't get out, someone being held against their will. "Eleanor," Lauren whispered to herself, her voice trembling. "It's you, isn't it?" There was no immediate response, just the continuous weak crying, as if the person on the other side barely had the strength to make a sound. Then, after long seconds, a hoarse, shaky voice came through the door. "Who's there?" Lauren felt tears burning her eyes. It was a woman's voice, elderly, broken by suffering and forced medication. "My name is Lauren. I'm the housekeeper here. Mrs. Montgomery, is that you?" There was a heavy silence. Then a muffled sob. "Yes, it's me. Please, help me. Please." Lauren rested her forehead against the door, tears now streaming freely. She had found Eleanor, the family. Matriarch, the woman everyone thought was in treatment, was here, locked in a room, a prisoner in the very house her son had bought for her. I'm going to get you out of here, Mrs. Montgomery. I promise. But I need proof. I need Mr. Montgomery to see what's happening. Can you get to the door?" It took a while, but Eleanor managed to drag herself to the door. Lauren heard the shuffling, weak steps, as if every movement cost an immense effort. When the elderly woman finally got close, Lauren could smell the strong odor of medicine and poor hygiene seeping through the crack under the door. Her stomach churned again, but she held firm. It was then that she heard footsteps coming up the stairs. Her blood froze. Valerie. Lauren looked around desperately, searching for a place to hide. She ran into one of the empty rooms and crouched behind a pile of old boxes covered by a dusty sheet. She held her breath, her body trembling from head to toe. Valerie appeared in the hallway wearing a dark blue silk robe and carrying a tray with a glass of water and some white pills. Her face was serene, almost expressionless, as if this were just another routine task. She walked directly to the locked door, opened the padlock with a key she took from her robe pocket, and entered the room without ceremony. Lauren heard Valerie's cold voice through the ajar door. "It's time for your medication, Eleanor. Don't make me use force again." There was a murmur of protest, weak and confused, as if Eleanor were trying to argue, but the words wouldn't come out right. "I don't want to hear excuses. Open your mouth." A tense silence. Then the sound of someone swallowing with difficulty. "Good. Behave, and maybe I'll bring you something to eat in the morning." Valerie left the room moments later, locked the door again with the padlock, and went down the stairs with the same calm she had come up with. Lauren remained hidden for long minutes, mentally counting to 300 before she dared to move. When she finally found the courage, she slipped out of her hiding place and ran down to her own room, her body shaking with fear, anger, and determination. That night, Lauren couldn't sleep a wink. Her mind worked frantically, trying to process what she had witnessed. Eleanor was alive. She was here on the 3rd floor of the mansion, locked in a room, being forcibly medicated by Valerie every night. But why? What did Valerie gain by keeping her mother-in-law captive? And what did Adrian know about all this? Was it possible he knew nothing? That he trusted his wife so much that he blindly believed everything she said? Lauren needed proof. She needed something concrete she could show Adrian, something that would leave no room for doubt or denial. But how could she get it without being discovered? Valerie watched her every move, every word, every gesture. One false step and Lauren could end up in the same situation as Eleanor, or worse. It was then that she remembered the digital camera she had seen in a drawer in Adrian's office. He used it on his business trips to photograph facilities and equipment. If Lauren could just borrow the camera for a few hours, she could record evidence of what was happening on the 3rd floor. It was risky, very risky, but she saw no other way. Eleanor needed help, and Lauren would be that help no matter the cost. Lauren woke up, the next day with swollen eyes and a heavy head. She had slept poorly, tormented by nightmares in which she herself was locked in that 3rd floor room, screaming for help, while Valerie smiled from the other side of the door. She looked at the clock on her nightstand. 5:30 in the morning. She had half an hour before she needed to start her workday. She got up, splashed cold water on her face, and looked at herself in the tiny bathroom mirror. Her dark brown eyes were tired, marked by deep circles. Her straight black hair was disheveled. She looked like she had aged 10 years in a single night, but she couldn't show weakness. She couldn't let Valerie notice that something had changed. She had to act as if everything were normal, as if she hadn't discovered the terrible secret that house was hiding. She combed her hair, tied it back in a simple ponytail, and put on her work uniform. Black pants, white blouse, comfortable shoes. The daily armor of an invisible housekeeper. She took 3 deep breaths, trying to calm her racing heart, and left the room. The kitchen was empty when she arrived. The faint morning light streamed through the large windows, illuminating the gleaming appliances and the flawless white porcelain floor. Lauren began to prepare breakfast according to the routine Valerie had established. Fresh, strong coffee, natural orange juice, warm baguettes, imported mixed berry jam, unsalted French butter, assorted cheeses, fruit cut into perfect geometric shapes. As she worked, her mind wouldn't stop. She needed a plan. She needed to find the right moment to take the digital camera from Adrian's office. But when? Valerie was always around, always watching, always in control, and Adrian, though emotionally absent, still moved through the house at unpredictable times. Lauren finished setting the dining room table and waited. At 7 o'clock sharp, Valerie came down the stairs wearing a stylish yoga outfit, all in shades of grey. Her hair was in a flawless bun, and she wore light but perfect makeup. She looked like a magazine model, not a woman who kept her mother-in-law prisoner on the 3rd floor. "Good morning, Lauren," Valerie said in that cold, controlled voice. "Is breakfast ready?" "Yes, ma'am. Everything just as you like it." "Excellent. Mr. Montgomery is finishing up some important emails. He'll be down in a few minutes." Valerie sat at the table and began to scroll through her tablet, checking the day's news. Lauren stood in the corner of the room waiting to serve, observing her employer's every move. How could that woman sleep at night? How could she live with herself knowing what she was doing to Eleanor? Was there any remorse hidden behind those cold golden eyes? Or was Valerie simply devoid of any empathy, any humanity? Adrian came down a few minutes later, wearing a flawless navy blue suit, a red tie, and shiny Italian shoes. He looked even more tired than the day before, with deep dark circles and an expression of exhaustion that not even the expensive suit could hide. "Morning," he said in a hoarse voice, sitting at the head of the table. "Good morning, dear," Valerie replied, without looking up from her tablet. "Sleep well?" "Like always," he lied, pouring himself some coffee. Lauren watched the interaction between the couple. There was no affection, no connection, nothing but a cold, mechanical politeness. They seemed like two strangers playing a social role, not a couple who shared a life. How had they gotten to this point? Had it always been like this? Or had something changed when Eleanor was imprisoned? Adrian's cell phone rang in the middle of breakfast. He answered, murmured a few words, and hung up with a heavy sigh. "I have to travel to Stamford today," he announced. "Last-minute meeting with investors. I'll be back tomorrow night." Lauren felt her heart race. Adrian would be gone. Valerie would be alone in the mansion. This was the opportunity she needed. If she could get Valerie to leave too, she would have the whole house to herself for a few hours. She could get the camera, go up to the 3rd floor, record the evidence, and put everything back before anyone returned. "All right, dear," Valerie said with indifference. "Have a good meeting." Adrian finished his breakfast quickly, grabbed his briefcase, and walked out the front door without looking back. Lauren heard the roar of the luxury car's engine, followed by the whir of the electronic gate opening and closing. He was gone. Now all she needed was for Valerie to leave too. But Valerie had no plans to leave. She spent the entire morning moving through the house, rearranging objects that were already perfectly arranged, calling vendors, answering emails, supervising Lauren's every move. It was frustrating. The opportunity was right there, so close but unreachable as long as Valerie remained in the mansion. It wasn't until early afternoon that luck finally smiled on Lauren. Valerie's phone rang, and she answered with that professional, controlled voice she always used with outsiders. "Yes, I'm listening. What do you mean, an emergency? What happened with the system?" There was a long pause as the person on the other end explained something. "All right. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Don't do anything until I arrive." Valerie hung up and looked at Lauren with irritation. "I have to go out. A problem at my husband's office. You'll be alone in the house for a few hours. Don't do anything other than your usual duties. Is that clear?" "Yes, Ma'am, of course. And don't even think about going to the 3rd floor. I'll know if you disobey me." "I won't, Ma'am, I promise." Valerie grabbed her purse, her car keys, and left in a hurry. Lauren waited until she heard the car's engine fade into the distance, until she was absolutely sure she was alone. Then she ran to Adrian's office. The room was large and decorated with fine wood furniture. There was a huge desk covered in papers and documents, shelves filled with technical books and business awards, and a brown leather sofa in a corner. Lauren opened the side drawer of the desk, where she had seen the digital camera the week before. There it was, a compact but high-quality camera with a charged battery and an empty memory card. Lauren took the camera with trembling hands and put it in her apron pocket. She took a deep breath, trying to calm her nerves, and left the office. Now came the hardest part. Go up to the third floor, record the evidence, and get back before Valerie returned. She ran up the stairs past the second floor and reached the forbidden corridor. The daylight streamed through the high windows, making the space less frightening than the night before. But the silence was still oppressive, heavy, as if even the air was afraid to circulate there. Lauren approached the locked door and knocked lightly. "Mrs. Montgomery, it's me, Lauren. I'm here to help you." There was a movement on the other side, followed by the elderly woman's weak, trembling voice. "Lauren, you came back?" "I'm back. And I brought a camera to record what's happening. I need proof to show Mr. Montgomery. Can you get to the door?" "I can, just give me a minute." Lauren waited, listening to the sounds of someone shuffling with difficulty. When Eleanor finally reached the door, Lauren turned on the camera and started recording through the crack under the door, tilting the device to capture the image. What appeared on the camera's small screen made Lauren's stomach turn. Eleanor was sitting on the dirty wooden floor, her white hair disheveled and filthy, her clothes stained and torn, her face thin and pale. Her eyes, which in the old photograph had shone with kindness and joy, were now dull, lifeless, sunken into deep, dark circles. She looked like she had aged 30 years in just 2. Her hands trembled constantly, a likely side effect of the forced medications Valerie administered every night. The room around her was small and windowless. There was only a thin mattress on the floor, a bucket in the corner that probably served as a toilet, and a few empty water bottles scattered around. The walls were peeling, and there were water stains on the ceiling. It was a scene of horror. A scene no one would imagine existed in a luxurious Upper East Side mansion. Eleanor raised a trembling hand toward the camera and began to speak in a broken but determined voice. "Adrian, my son, if you're seeing this, you need to know the truth. Your wife locked me in here almost 2 years ago. She gives me pills every night. Pills that make me dizzy, confused, weak. She said if I tried to scream or get attention, she'd give me even bigger doses. She said you would never believe me, that everyone thinks I'm crazy, that I'm in treatment. But I'm not crazy, my son. I'm a prisoner. Please, get me out of here before it's too late." Eleanor's voice broke at the end, and she began to cry silently. Lauren felt tears streaming down her own face as well. It was a devastating scene, a scene no son should ever see, a scene that proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that Valerie Montgomery was a criminal. Lauren recorded for a few more minutes, capturing details of the room, the deplorable conditions in which Eleanor lived, the elderly woman's physical weakness. When she was done, she turned off the camera and put it in her pocket. "Mrs. Montgomery, I'm going to show this to Mr. Montgomery as soon as he gets back. You're going to get out of here, I promise." "Thank you, Lauren. God bless you for having the courage to help me." Lauren hurried down the stairs and ran back to Adrian's office. She needed to transfer the video somewhere else, somewhere safe where Valerie couldn't find and delete it. She turned on Adrian's computer, connected the camera with a USB cable she found in the drawer, and copied the video file to a flash drive she had brought from home. Then she deleted the video from the camera, cleared the computer's history, and put everything back in its original place. She was putting the flash drive in her pocket when she heard the sound of the electronic gate opening. Valerie was back. Lauren felt panic rise in her throat. She ran out of the office, closed the door silently, and went back to the kitchen, pretending to be washing the lunch dishes. Valerie entered through the front door with a stern face, threw her purse on the living room sofa, and walked straight to the kitchen. "Everything all right here?" she asked suspiciously, her golden eyes scanning Lauren's face for any sign of guilt. "Yes, ma'am. I finished cleaning the living room and was starting on the dishes." Valerie nodded slowly, but her eyes remained fixed on Lauren for a few more seconds. It was as if she could smell the lie, as if she could sense that something was different. "I'm going to take a shower. If Mr. Montgomery calls, tell him I'm busy." "Yes, ma'am." Valerie went upstairs and disappeared onto the second floor. Lauren let out the breath she had been holding and leaned against the sink, her legs shaky. She had done it. She had the proof. She had the undeniable evidence of the crime Valerie had been committing for 2 years. Now she just had to wait for Adrian to come back and show him the video. But the wait would be long. Adrian would only return the next evening. That meant Lauren would have to spend another full day pretending everything was normal, another full night listening to Eleanor's moans from the third floor, another 24 hours keeping a secret that weighed on her shoulders like lead. That night, Lauren could barely eat dinner. Her stomach was in knots with anxiety. She retreated to her room as soon as she finished her duties, locked the door, and took the flash drive from its makeshift hiding place inside a rolled-up sock in her drawer. She looked at the small plastic and metal object. Inside was the truth. Inside was Eleanor's freedom. Inside was Valerie's downfall. Lauren called her son before bed, as she did every night. Ryan was excited because he had gotten a good grade on a math test. Lauren congratulated him enthusiastically, trying to hide the tension in her voice. They talked about the weekend they would spend together, about the trip to the park she had promised. When she hung up, Lauren felt her chest tighten. She was doing all of this for Ryan. To give him a better life, to teach him that doing the right thing was always the right path, no matter how hard it was. Around 2 in the morning, Lauren woke to the usual sounds from the third floor, but this time she didn't just feel fear or curiosity. She felt a deep anger burning inside her. How dare Valerie? How did she have the nerve to climb those stairs every night, open that door, and force that poor woman to take pills that left her dazed and confused? What kind of person did that to their own mother-in-law, to the mother of the man she claimed to love? Lauren couldn't stand to lie there. She got up, left her room, and silently climbed to the second floor. She hid in the stairwell leading to the third floor, where she had a partial view of the hallway. She waited. Minutes later, Valerie appeared wearing the same dark blue silk robe, carrying the same tray with water and pills. But this time Lauren noticed something she hadn't before. Valerie didn't climb those stairs with disgust or guilt. She climbed them with satisfaction, with pleasure. There was a faint smile at the corners of her mouth, a strange glint in her eyes. She enjoyed this. She enjoyed the power. She enjoyed the control. She enjoyed knowing she held Eleanor completely in her grasp. The revelation made Lauren's blood run cold. Valerie wasn't just a greedy or ambitious woman. She was cruel. She was sadistic. She found pleasure in the suffering of others, and that made her far more dangerous than Lauren had imagined. The next day, Lauren worked on autopilot. She cleaned, cooked, organized, all without thinking, her mind focused only on the moment Adrian would return home. The hours dragged on with painful slowness. Every minute seemed to last an eternity. Valerie spent the day shopping online, talking on the phone with friends, planning a party she was hosting the following month. She was in a good mood, which was rare. She even complimented the lunch Lauren had prepared, a mushroom risotto that was cooked to perfection. "You're improving, Lauren. Keep it up and maybe I'll give you a raise at the end of the year." "Thank you, Mum." But Lauren didn't want compliments from Valerie. She wanted nothing from that woman except to see her pay for what she had done. Adrian arrived around 8 in the evening, wearing the same navy blue suit from the day before, now wrinkled and with a loosened tie. He looked exhausted, with even deeper dark circles and a defeated expression on his face. The meeting in Stamford probably hadn't gone as planned. "Welcome back, dear," Valerie said, kissing him lightly on the cheek. "Did you have dinner?" "I ate something on the road. I'm going straight to bed. I'm dead tired." "Of course, get some rest." Adrian dragged his feet up the stairs. Lauren watched everything from the corner of the room, where she pretended to be arranging books on the shelf. It was now or never. She had to talk to him. She had to show him the video. But how? Valerie was there, watching her every move. There was no privacy in the mansion. There was no safe moment. Lauren decided she would wait until the middle of the night. When Valerie went up to give Eleanor her medication, she would knock on Adrian's bedroom door and show him everything. It would be her only chance. The hours dragged on again. Lauren lay on her bed, fully dressed, waiting for the right moment. Midnight, 1 in the morning, 1:30. Finally, at 2 o'clock sharp, she heard Valerie's familiar footsteps heading up to the third floor. Lauren jumped up, grabbed the flash drive she had hidden in the drawer, and ran to the second floor. She stopped in front of the master bedroom door and knocked lightly. Nothing. She knocked, again a little harder. The door opened and Adrian appeared, wearing an old t-shirt and pajama pants. He looked confused and annoyed. "Lauren, what do you want at this hour?" "Mr. Montgomery," I need to talk to you. It's urgent. It's about your mother." Adrian's expression changed instantly. The annoyance gave way to confusion and then to concern. "My mother? What about her?" "She's not away, sir. She's here, on the 3rd floor. Your wife has been holding her prisoner for almost 2 years." Adrian took a step back, shocked. "What, are you crazy? My mother is in a treatment facility in Vermont. Valerie shows me medical reports every month. Those reports are fake, sir. Your wife is lying. I have proof. I have a video." Lauren held out the flash drive with trembling hands. Adrian looked at the small object as if it were a venomous snake. He was paralyzed, clearly unsure whether to believe the housekeeper or throw her out of the house that instant. It was then that they heard footsteps coming down the stairs. Valerie had finished medicating Eleanor and was on her way back. Lauren pushed the flash drive into Adrian's hand. "Please, sir, watch the video. And then go to the 3rd floor and see for yourself. Your mother is begging for help." Before Adrian could respond, Lauren ran back to her own room and locked the door, her heart pounding erratically. She had done her part. She had planted the seed of doubt. Now it was up to Adrian to have the courage to face the truth. Lauren stayed awake for the rest of the night, her ears tuned to any sound from the floors above. Had Adrian watched the video? Had he confronted Valerie? Had he gone up to the 3rd floor to see his mother? The silence of the night offered no answers, only more questions, only more anguish. Lauren hugged her pillow and prayed she had made the right choice, that Adrian would believe her, that Eleanor would finally be freed from that nightmare. When the sun began to rise, Lauren got up, her eyes burning from lack of sleep. She washed her face, put on her uniform, and went to the kitchen to prepare breakfast. Her hands trembled as she cut the fruit and warmed the bread. Everything seemed normal, too quiet. Had nothing happened? Had Adrian simply ignored the video and gone back to sleep? At 7 o'clock, Valerie came downstairs, her face serene and with the same air of superiority as always. She sat at the table and began to scroll through her tablet as she did every morning. Nothing in her behavior suggested that anything had changed. "Where is Mr. Montgomery?" Lauren asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "Still sleeping. He got in very tired last night. Don't wake him." "Yes, ma'am." Lauren served the coffee with trembling hands. Had Adrian not watched the video? Had she risked everything for nothing? But then the office. Door opened and Adrian appeared. He wasn't wearing a suit. He was in the same sleepwear from the night before, his hair disheveled, his face pale. But his eyes, which used to be empty and tired, now burned with an intensity Lauren had never seen before. He walked slowly to the dining room, holding the flash drive in his right hand. He stopped at the entrance, staring intently at Valerie. "We need to talk. Now." Valerie looked up from her tablet with an expression of boredom. "About what, dear? I'm busy." "About my mother, about what you did to her, about the lies you've been telling me for 2 years. Valerie's face went pale. Her golden eyes narrowed, and she glanced quickly at Lauren, who remained motionless in the corner of the room. In that moment, everything became clear. Valerie understood. The housekeeper had talked, the secret was out, and there was no way to deny it anymore. "What did she tell you?" Valerie asked in a dangerously low voice. Adrian held up the flash drive. "She didn't tell me. She showed me. I saw the video, Valerie. I saw my mother. I saw the conditions you're keeping her in. I saw everything." The silence that followed was deafening. Valerie remained seated, her fingers gripping the edges of the tablet so tightly her knuckles turned white. Lauren could see her employer's mind working frantically, searching for an escape, an explanation, a lie that could save her. But there was no escape. There was no way to escape the truth when it was recorded on video, when it could be seen and re-seen, when it was undeniable. Finally, Valerie stood up slowly. Her face showed no guilt or remorse. It showed anger, pure, cold anger. "You don't understand anything, Adrian. You don't understand what your mother is capable of. You don't understand what she did to me, to our marriage. She needed to be controlled. She needed to learn her place." "Her place?" Adrian shouted, his voice breaking with emotion. "You locked my mother in a room, you drugged her, you tortured her, and you still have the nerve to talk about her place. She was going to destroy everything we built. She wanted you to divorce me. She hated me. She did everything she could to break us up. Then you should have talked to me. You should have told me what you were feeling. But no, you chose the cruelest path. You chose to turn my mother into a prisoner in her own home. How could you? Valerie didn't answer. She just looked at Lauren with a hatred so intense it made the housekeeper take a step back. In that look was a silent promise. This isn't over. You'll pay for betraying me. But Lauren wasn't afraid. Not anymore. She had done the right thing. And now, finally, Eleanor would be free. Finally, the truth had conquered the lies. Finally, justice was being served. Adrian didn't wait for Valerie's response. He turned and walked toward the stairs with determined steps. Valerie ran after him, trying to grab his arm, but he shook her off with a sharp gesture. Adrian, wait. Let me explain. Things aren't what they seem. Enough lies, Valerie. Enough. He took the stairs 2 at a time, his body trembling with rage and despair. Lauren followed at a respectful distance, unsure whether to interfere or just watch. Valerie also went up, still trying to argue, still trying to find some way to reverse the situation. When they reached the 3rd floor, Adrian stopped in front of the locked door. He looked at the thick padlock at the dusty and abandoned hallway, and something inside him broke. His mother was on the other side of that door. And he had done nothing. He had trusted Valerie blindly. He had believed every lie, every fake medical report, every empty excuse. Where's the key? He asked in a hoarse voice. Valerie hesitated, her fingers clutching the hem of her silk robe. Adrian, listen. Your mother isn't well. She needs specialized care. If you open that door now, you could make her condition worse. Where is the key? Valerie? I'm not going to ask again. The tension in the air was palpable. Valerie realized there was no turning back. With slow, deliberate movements, she took a small golden key from her robe pocket and handed it to Adrian. Her eyes still burned with anger, but now there was something else. Fear. She was afraid of what would come next. Adrian took the key, his hands shaking so much he could barely fit it into the padlock. After 3 attempts, the lock finally clicked open. He removed it, threw it on the floor, and pushed the door open forcefully. The smell that came out of the room made everyone recoil. It was a smell of medicine, sweat, poor hygiene, and accumulated suffering. Adrian covered his nose with his hand and went inside, his eyes adjusting to the dim light. There were no windows. Only a weak bulb in the ceiling illuminated the small, suffocating space, and there, sitting in the corner of the room on a thin, dirty mattress, was Eleanor. She was just a shadow of the woman she used to be. Her white hair was long and matted, her clothes were filthy rags, her face was thin and pale. But the worst part was her eyes, empty, lost eyes, as if her soul had been sucked out of her body. When Adrian entered, Eleanor slowly lifted her head. It took a few seconds for her to recognize him. When she finally did, her eyes filled with tears. "Adrian," she murmured in a weak, trembling voice. "My son? Is it really you?" Adrian fell to his knees beside his mother, tears streaming freely down his face. He hugged her gently, as if she would break at his touch. "Mom. Oh my God, Mom. What did she do to you? What did she do?" Eleanor began to cry too, clinging to her son with trembling hands. It was a cry of relief, of liberation, of renewed hope. "I thought you'd never come. I thought you'd forgotten me." "Never, Mom. Never. I swear I didn't know. I didn't know anything." Lauren watched from the doorway, her own tears blurring her vision. It was a heartbreaking scene, a son reuniting with his mother after 2 years of forced separation, a mother finally being rescued from the nightmare her daughter-in-law had created. Valerie remained in the hallway, her arms crossed, her face expressionless. She showed no remorse, no guilt, just a cold, contained anger. Adrian stood up, still holding his mother carefully, and looked at Valerie with an intensity that made his wife take a step back. "You're going to pay for this. You'll pay for every day she suffered in here, for every night she cried for help, for every dose of medicine you forced down her throat. You'll pay for everything." "Don't be so dramatic, Adrian. Your mother is alive. She's fine. It could have been much worse." "Fine?" Adrian shouted, his voice echoing down the hall. "Look at her. Look at what you've done. She can barely stand. She can barely speak. And you have the audacity to say she's fine." Valerie didn't answer. She simply turned and walked down the stairs, her footsteps echoing in the heavy morning silence. Adrian turned to Lauren. "Help me get her to one of the guest rooms. I need to call a doctor. A real doctor." Together, Adrian and Lauren helped Eleanor to her feet. She barely had the strength to walk, her muscles atrophied from months of forced inactivity. They carried her carefully down the hall, slowly descended the stairs, and took her to one of the guest rooms on the second floor. It was a large, well-lit room with a comfortable king-size bed, a private bathroom, and windows overlooking the garden. Lauren helped Eleanor lie down while Adrian ran to get the phone. He called a private doctor he knew, explained the situation in general terms, and asked him to come immediately. Then he called a lawyer. Valerie needed to be held legally responsible for what she had done. While Adrian made the calls, Lauren stayed by Eleanor's side, holding her frail hand. The elderly woman looked around with teary eyes, as if she couldn't believe she was finally out of that horrible room. "Thank you," she whispered to Lauren. "You saved me. You had courage when no one else did." "I just did what was right, Mrs. Montgomery. You didn't deserve to go through that." "What's your name? My memory isn't very good because of the medicine." "Lauren. Lauren Miller." Eleanor squeezed Lauren's hand tightly. "Lauren Miller. I'll remember that name for the rest of my life. You're an angel. A true angel." Lauren felt her chest tighten with emotion. She had risked her job, risked her safety, risked everything to do the right thing. And it was worth it. Completely worth it. The doctor arrived about an hour later. He was a middle-aged, serious and professional man who examined Eleanor carefully. He asked questions about the medications she was taking, her diet, her mental state. Eleanor answered with difficulty, the words coming out slowly, as if she had forgotten how to form complete sentences. After the examination, the doctor took Adrian into the hallway to talk privately. Lauren stayed by Eleanor's side, helping her take small sips of water. "She is severely dehydrated and malnourished," the doctor explained, in a grave voice. "The medications she was given are heavy sedatives, completely inappropriate for long-term use without proper medical supervision. She also shows signs of severe depression and psychological trauma. She will need intensive follow-up care in the coming months, physical therapy to regain muscle strength, psychological therapy to deal with the trauma, and a controlled diet to regain a healthy weight." Adrian listened with a pale face and clenched fists. "Will she make a full recovery?" "With time and proper care, yes, but the psychological damage could be lasting. What she went through was extremely traumatic." "I'll take care of her. I'll give her everything she needs, everything." The doctor nodded and left, promising to return the next day for more tests. Adrian went back into the room and sat beside his mother's bed, holding her hand gently. "I'm going to take care of you now, Mom. I promise nothing bad will ever happen to you again." Eleanor smiled faintly. "I know, my son. I know." While Adrian stayed with his mother, Lauren went down to the kitchen to prepare a light meal that Eleanor could eat. She found Valerie sitting in the living room drinking white wine straight from the bottle. She looked at Lauren with those cold, golden eyes. "Satisfied with what you've done?" Valerie asked in a voice full of venom. "I did what was right. You destroyed my marriage. You destroyed my life. And for what? For an old woman who won't even thank you properly." "Eleanor has already thanked me, and I didn't do it for gratitude. I did it because it was the right thing to do." Valerie laughed, a bitter, humorless sound. "You're so naive, Lauren. So pathetic. Do you think Adrian will reward you for this? Do you think you'll gain anything? You're just a housekeeper, a disposable piece. As soon as this is all over, he'll fire you and forget you ever existed." Lauren looked at Valerie with a calmness that surprised even herself. "Even if that happens, I'll still have done the right thing, and I'll sleep peacefully every night knowing that. Can you say the same?" Valerie didn't answer. She just took another sip of wine and stared at the wall, lost in her own bitter thoughts. The lawyer arrived in the early afternoon. He was a tall, elegant man in a flawless grey suit carrying a leather briefcase. He met with Adrian in the office and listened intently to the whole story. Adrian showed him the video Lauren had recorded, explained the circumstances, and spoke of the 2 years of imprisonment his mother had endured. The lawyer took detailed notes and at the end sighed heavily. "This is a serious case, very serious. Your wife could face criminal charges for unlawful imprisonment, psychological torture, and forced administration of medication. But it will depend on whether you want to pursue this. Lawsuits like this are long, painful, and public. It will expose you, your mother, and your entire family." Adrian didn't hesitate. "I don't care about the exposure. I want justice. I want her to pay for what she did." "Then let's proceed. I'll prepare the necessary paperwork. I also recommend you file for a restraining order against your wife. She cannot have access to your mother under any circumstances. Do it, and prepare the divorce papers too. I want this woman out of my life as soon as possible." The lawyer nodded and left, promising to start the process immediately. In the following days, the mansion turned into a silent battlefield. Valerie remained locked in her room, refusing to come out, refusing to talk, refusing to accept that she had lost. Adrian slept in the guest room next to Eleanor's, taking care of her day and night. Lauren took on a larger role in the house, no longer just as a housekeeper, but as an essential aid in Eleanor's recovery. The elderly woman improved slowly. With proper nutrition, rest, and affection, she began to regain her strength. Her memory was still foggy from months of forced medication, but gradually the fragments started to fit back together. She remembered small details from before her imprisonment. She remembered the piano lessons she used to give. She remembered the neighbors she used to chat with in the garden. She remembered the life Valerie had stolen from her. One afternoon, while Lauren was helping Eleanor take a shower, the elderly woman began to tell her story. Her voice was still weak, but there was a determination in it that hadn't been there before. "Valerie was always cold to me," Eleanor began, as Lauren gently washed her hair. "From the very first day I met her. Adrian was so in love, so blinded by it that he couldn't see who she really was. I tried to warn him. I tried to make him see, but the more I talked, the more he pulled away from me." "You didn't like her from the start?" "It wasn't a matter of liking her or not. It was a feeling that something was wrong. She was too calculating, too perfect, like she was playing a part. And I was right. After they got married, she changed completely. She started excluding me from household decisions. She started telling Adrian that I was getting senile, that I was making things up, that I was trying to destroy their marriage." "But Mr. Montgomery believed her," Eleanor sighed sadly. "Yes, he believed her. Valerie was very good at manipulating situations. She always had a plausible explanation for everything. She always made me look like the villain. Over time, Adrian started to distance himself from me. We stopped having Sunday lunch together. We stopped talking about his company. We lost that connection we always had, and I felt so alone, so lost." Lauren felt her heart ache. She could perfectly imagine how Eleanor must have felt, watching her son pull away, being manipulated, and being powerless to stop it. "And then one day," Eleanor continued, her voice breaking, "Valerie invited me to dinner. She said she wanted to make peace, that she wanted us to be friends. I believed her. I was a fool, and I believed her. We had dinner together. We talked, and she served wine. A lot of wine. I don't usually drink, but that night I drank more than I should have. And when I woke up, I was in that room, locked in, with Valerie telling me it was for my own good, that I needed treatment, that Adrian agreed with everything. Oh my God! I screamed, I banged on the door, I begged, but no one came, and every night Valerie would show up with those pills. At first I refused to take them, but she was stronger. She would hold me down, cover my nose until I had to open my mouth to breathe, and then shove the pills down my throat. After a few weeks I stopped fighting. I had no strength left. I had no hope left." Eleanor began to cry silently. Lauren finished washing her hair and hugged her gently. "But it's over now. You're free. You're safe. And Valerie is going to pay for what she did. I just want my son back," Eleanor whispered. "I just want our relationship back. Nothing else matters. And you will have it, I'm sure of it." That night, Adrian asked Valerie to leave the house. He didn't shout, he didn't raise his voice. He simply knocked on her bedroom door and said in a firm, cold voice that she had 24 hours to pack her bags and leave. She could take her clothes and personal belongings, but nothing else. The house was his, the money was his, and she would get nothing in the divorce because of the crimes she had committed. Valerie didn't argue, she didn't beg, she didn't ask for forgiveness. She simply looked at Adrian with those cold, golden eyes and said, "You're going to regret this. You're going to regret believing her instead of me." Adrian didn't reply. He just left the room and closed the door. The next day, Valerie packed her bags in silence. There were several large suitcases filled with designer clothes, expensive shoes, jewelry and imported perfumes. She carried everything to her car by herself, refusing any help. When she was done, she stopped at the front door and looked at the mansion one last time. Lauren was in the hallway watching. Valerie looked at her with a mixture of hatred and respect. "You won this time, Lauren. But remember, people like me always find a way back. Always." Then she got in her car and drove away, leaving behind only the echo of her empty threats. Adrian watched Valerie's car disappear down the street and felt a huge weight lift from his shoulders. For the first time in years, he could breathe freely. He could think clearly. He could see how much he had been manipulated, how much he had lost by blindly trusting the wrong person. He went up to the room where his mother was resting. Eleanor was sitting up in bed, reading a book Lauren had brought from the library. When she saw her son enter, she smiled. "Is she gone?" "She's gone. It's over, Mum. It's finally over." Adrian sat on the edge of the bed and held his mother's hand. "Forgive me. For everything. For not realizing. For not believing you. For letting this happen." Eleanor squeezed her son's hand tightly. "There's nothing to forgive, my son. Valerie was very good at manipulation. She fooled us both. The important thing is that we're together again now, and that's all that matters." They stayed like that for long minutes, just holding hands, reconnecting, healing the wounds Valerie had caused. Later, Adrian found Lauren in the kitchen. She was preparing dinner, a light vegetable soup that Eleanor could easily eat. "Lauren, I need to talk to you." She turned, wiping her hands on her apron. "Yes, sir?" Adrian hesitated, searching for the right words. "I don't know how to thank you for what you did. You saved my mother. You saved our family. And you risked everything to do it. I don't have enough words to express my gratitude." Lauren smiled shyly. "I just did what any decent person would do." "No, a lot of people would have stayed quiet. They would have pretended not to see. They would have chosen safety over courage. But not you. You chose the hard path. And for that, I will be eternally grateful." He paused, taking a deep breath. "I want you to keep working here, but not as a housekeeper, as the house manager, with a salary 3 times higher and every benefit I can imagine. And I want your son to come live here with you. We have plenty of rooms. He can go to a good school, have everything he needs. You both deserve this." Lauren felt tears welling up in her eyes. "Mr. Montgomery, I don't know what to say. This is more than I ever dreamed of." "Then say yes," she smiled through her tears. "Yes, I accept, and thank you so much, from the bottom of my heart." Adrian smiled too, a genuine smile that Lauren had never seen before. It was the smile of a man who was finally waking up from a long and painful nightmare, of a man who was ready to rebuild his life, of a man who had learned the hard way the importance of trusting the right people. Life in the mansion began to change, slowly but surely. Eleanor recovered day by day, gaining weight, regaining her memory, becoming the strong, loving woman she had always been. Ryan, Lauren's son, moved into the mansion and brought a joy that place hadn't known in years. The boy ran through the hallways, played in the garden, and filled the house with laughter and life. Adrian started spending more time at home. Fewer meetings, fewer trips, more moments with his mother and the people who truly mattered. He discovered that he had been asleep for years, letting his life run on autopilot while Valerie manipulated everything around him. And Lauren? Lauren finally had a place where she belonged, a place where she was valued, a place where she could give her son everything she had always wanted to give him. She was no longer invisible. She was no longer just a housekeeper. She was part of this strange but loving family that was rebuilding itself on the ruins of the past. The wounds would still take time to heal completely, but for the first time in a long time, there was hope. There was light at the end of the tunnel. There was the certainty that no matter how dark the past had been, the future could be different. It could be better, and it would be. 3 months had passed since Valerie left the mansion. 3 months of transformation, healing, and rediscovery. The house that once seemed cold and lifeless now breathed joy and human warmth. The windows stayed open during the day, letting in the sunlight and the birdsong. Ryan's laughter echoed through the hallways. The sound of Eleanor teaching piano once again filled the quiet afternoons. Lauren woke up that December morning with a smile on her face. It was her 33rd birthday, and for the first time in many years she felt truly happy. She got up from the comfortable room she now occupied on the 2nd floor, a space much larger and more beautiful than the little room in the back where she had slept for the first few months. She put on a simple but pretty dress she had bought with her new salary and went to get Ryan from the room next door. The boy was already awake, playing with the toy cars Adrian had given him the month before. When he saw his mother, he ran and hugged her tightly. "Happy birthday, Mom. I made you a drawing at school. Want to see?" "Of course I do, sweetie. Show me." Ryan pulled a colorful sheet of construction paper from his backpack. It was a drawing of 4 figures holding hands. A woman with black hair, a little boy, an elderly lady, and a tall man. Underneath, in crooked but neat letters, it said, "My new family." Lauren felt her heart swell with emotion. Ryan considered Eleanor and Adrian part of his family now, and maybe he was right. Maybe family wasn't just about blood, but about the people we choose to love and protect. "It's beautiful, Ryan. I'm going to keep it forever." They went downstairs for breakfast together. The table was set with much more care than usual, with fresh flowers in the center and an embroidered tablecloth that Eleanor had taken from an old chest. When Lauren entered the dining room, Adrian and Eleanor greeted her with warm smiles. "Happy birthday, Lauren," said Eleanor, now recovered enough to move around the house without help. "May this new year of your life bring even more joy than the last." "Thank you, Eleanor. You didn't have to do anything special." "Of course we did," said Adrian, pouring fresh coffee. "You deserve to be celebrated. In fact, I have something for you." He picked up an envelope from the table and handed it to Lauren. She opened it curiously and found an official document inside. It was the deed to a small apartment in her and Ryan's names. Lauren read it twice before she could process the information. "Mr. Montgomery, I can't accept this. It's too much." "You can, and you will," he said firmly. "It's a small investment compared to what you did for us, and I want you and Ryan to have a place of your own. Not that I want you to leave, quite the contrary, but I want you to have the security of knowing that no matter what happens, you have a roof over your heads." Lauren felt tears streaming down her face. It was more than a gift. It was a gesture of recognition, of respect, of true gratitude. "I don't know how to thank you." "You don't have to. You're the one who deserves it." Breakfast was cheerful and relaxed. They talked about their plans for the upcoming Christmas, about the piano lessons Eleanor planned to start giving again, about Ryan's school where he was doing very well. It was all so different from those tense, silent first months in the mansion. But the peace wouldn't last forever. In the middle of the morning, the doorbell rang. It was Adrian's lawyer with news about the case against Valerie. They gathered in the office. The lawyer opened his briefcase and took out several documents. "I have good news and bad news," he began. "The good news is we got a permanent restraining order against Valerie. She can't come within 100 yards of any of you. We also managed to nullify any claim she had on the marital assets. The divorce will be finalized next month." "And the bad news?" Adrian asked. "Valerie is trying to countersue. She's hired a very expensive lawyer and is claiming that Eleanor was genuinely ill and that everything she did was to protect her. She has forged medical documents to support this version. It won't hold up in court, but she's determined to drag this out as long as possible and tarnish your reputation in the media." Adrian sighed heavily. He knew Valerie wouldn't give up easily. She was too proud, too controlling to accept defeat without a fight. What do you recommend? That you prepare for a long and public trial. The media will love this story. Wealthy socialite imprisons mother-in-law in luxury mansion. It'll be headlines everywhere, but we have the evidence on our side. We have the video Lauren recorded. We have Eleanor's testimony. We have the real medical report showing the state she was found in. Valerie can make noise, but in the end, the truth will prevail. Adrian looked at his mother, who was sitting silently beside Lauren. Mum, are you ready to face this? To talk about what happened in public? Eleanor took a deep breath and nodded. I am. If it means Valerie will be held accountable for what she did, then I'm ready. I'm not afraid of her anymore. Then let's move forward, Adrian said with determination. The lawyer nodded and left, promising to keep them informed of every development in the case. In the following weeks, the story leaked to the press exactly as the lawyer had predicted. The newspapers and news sites exploited every sordid detail of the case. Old photos of Valerie at social events appeared alongside sensational headlines. The Upper East Side mansion was surrounded by reporters wanting interviews. Adrian refused all requests, but the pressure was constant and suffocating. Eleanor handled the exposure with surprising dignity. She gave a single interview to a reputable newspaper where she told her story with painful but necessary detail. The public reaction was immediate and intense. There was a wave of support for Eleanor and condemnation for Valerie. Senior citizens' rights groups spoke out. Politicians used the case to call for stricter laws against elder abuse. Valerie tried to defend herself in her own interviews, but her statements sounded empty and false. She claimed to have acted in Eleanor's defense, but when reporters asked why she had then kept her mother-in-law locked up and drugged, she had no convincing answer. Her victim strategy wasn't working. The public had no sympathy for her. Lauren stayed out of the spotlight for the most part. Some journalists tried to contact her, but she refused all interviews. She didn't want fame, she didn't want attention. She just wanted her life to go back to normal and for Eleanor to get the justice she deserved. Ryan, protected by his age and Adrian's decision to keep him away from the media, continued his school routine as usual. Lauren was grateful for that. The boy didn't need to be exposed to the circus the case had become. It was on a rainy afternoon in January that everything came to a head. Valerie showed up at the mansion violating the restraining order. The security system detected her immediately, and Adrian called the lawyer and the police. But before anyone could arrive, Valerie rang the doorbell insistently. Adrian went to the door but didn't open it. He spoke through the intercom. Valerie, you're violating a court order. Leave before the police get here. I need to talk to you, Adrian. Please, just 5 minutes. We have nothing to talk about. Please, I'm begging you. There was something in Valerie's voice that made Adrian hesitate. It wasn't her usual controlled, cold voice. It was a broken, desperate human voice. He looked at Lauren, who was standing beside him with Ryan hiding behind her legs. Don't open the door, Mr. Montgomery. It could be dangerous. He nodded and continued speaking through the intercom. Say what you need to say from out there. There was a long silence. Then Valerie began to speak, and for the first time there was something true in her words. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know what I did was unforgivable. But I need you to understand. I wasn't born this way. I wasn't always this cruel, calculating person. She paused, her voice breaking. My own mother used to lock me in rooms when I was a child. Every time I did something wrong, she'd lock me in the dark for hours, sometimes days. She told me it was for my own good, that I needed to learn to be better. And I grew up believing that. I grew up thinking that controlling people, keeping them under your thumb, was a form of love. It was all I knew. Adrian listened in silence, his face a mask of conflicting emotions. When your mother started trying to break us up, I panicked. I was afraid of losing you. I was afraid of being alone again, and I did what my mother always did to me. I tried to control the situation the only way I knew how. I know it was wrong. I know I destroyed lives, but I didn't know how to do it differently. I never learned how to truly love. I only learned how to control." Lauren felt a tightness in her chest. It wasn't exactly pity she felt for Valerie. It was a deep sadness in recognizing that even villains have their own stories of pain. It didn't justify what Valerie had done, but it explained it. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," Valerie continued. "I know I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know the truth. I wanted you to understand that I'm not just a monster. I'm a victim too. A victim who created other victims, and I'll spend the rest of my life paying for it." The police arrived at that moment, and Valerie didn't resist when they took her away. She looked at the mansion one last time, her eyes welling with tears, and then got into the police car in silence. Adrian stood at the door for long minutes after. The car was gone. Lauren approached and placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Are you okay?" He took a deep breath and nodded. "Yeah, I'm just processing everything. All this time I saw her as purely evil, but now I understand that she was hurt too. It doesn't change what she did. It doesn't excuse her, but it helps me understand." "Understanding isn't the same as forgiveness," Lauren said softly. "You can understand where she came from and still not forgive her for what she did to your mother. I know, and I don't think I'll ever completely forgive her. But at least now I can move on without so much hate. Hate would only poison my own soul." Valerie's trial took place 3 months later. She was found guilty of unlawful imprisonment, forced administration of medication, and psychological torture. The sentence was 8 years in a work release program with mandatory psychological counseling. It wasn't the maximum punishment she could have received, but the judge took into account her own history of childhood trauma and the fact that she was seeking treatment. Eleanor watched the sentencing alongside Adrian and Lauren. When the judge banged the gavel and announced the verdict, she didn't smile triumphantly. She just nodded with quiet satisfaction. Justice had been served, and that was enough. Life went on in the Upper East Side mansion. Eleanor started giving piano lessons again, receiving students twice a week in the music room Adrian had renovated especially for her. The sound of scales and melodies filling the house was a constant reminder that life had returned to normal. Better than normal. It had returned to what it should have always been. Ryan excelled in his new school, making friends and getting excellent grades. He called Eleanor Grandma Eleanor and Adrian Uncle Adrian, titles they both accepted with affection. The child had brought an innocent joy to a house that had been shrouded in shadows for so long. Lauren took on her role as house manager with competence and dedication. She hired 2 more staff members to help her, ensuring everything ran perfectly. But more than a manager, she had become a true friend to Eleanor and a confidant to Adrian. They talked about everything: his business, her plans for Ryan's future, life in general. There were moments during these conversations when Lauren noticed Adrian looking at her differently. It wasn't just gratitude or respect. It was something deeper, more complex. But she didn't let those thoughts go too far. There was a world of difference between them. She was the housekeeper who had become a manager. He was the millionaire who had lost everything by trusting the wrong person. Could something more possibly blossom between them? Lauren didn't know, and for now she didn't need to. She was happy with what she had, with their friendship, with her job, with the new life she was building for herself and Ryan. On a June evening, 6 months after Valerie's trial, the mansion hosted a party. Not a big, ostentatious party like the ones Valerie used to organize. An intimate party, with only the people who truly mattered. Rosa, the gardener. Mario, the grocery delivery man. Brandon, the security tech. The lawyer who had fought for them. The doctor who had cared for Eleanor. A few neighbors who had supported the family during the difficult months. It was a celebration of life, of overcoming, of justice served, and of second chances. Adrian made an emotional toast, thanking everyone who had supported his family. When it was time to thank Lauren, his voice broke. "Lauren Miller, you came into this house as a simple housekeeper, but you revealed yourself to be the most courageous and principled person I have ever met. You saved my mother, you saved me, and you taught us that doing the right thing is always worth it, no matter the cost. I will be eternally grateful that our paths crossed." Lauren felt tears stream down her face as everyone applauded. Eleanor hugged her tightly, whispering a thank you that contained years of gratitude. The party went on late into the night with music, dancing, and lots of laughter. Ryan fell asleep on the sofa in the middle of the party, exhausted from all the playing. Adrian carried him to his room gently, covering him with the boy's favorite blanket. When all the guests had left and the house was quiet again, Adrian and Lauren found themselves on the back patio. The night was cool and starry, and the garden exuded the fragrance of the flowers Rosa had planted months ago. "It was a beautiful night," Lauren said, leaning on the wooden railing. "It was," Adrian agreed, standing beside her. "You know, sometimes I still can't believe how much things have changed. A year ago I was asleep while my life was falling apart around me, and now you're awake." He smiled. "Yes, I'm awake, thanks to you." They stood in comfortable silence for a few moments, just enjoying the peace of the night. "Lauren," Adrian said softly, "can I ask you a question?" "Of course." "Have you ever thought about starting your own business one day, managing properties for other people? You have a natural talent for it." Lauren laughed. "I don't know if I'm that ambitious. I'm happy here with you all. This house has become my real home." "I know, and I'm glad you feel that way. But promise me that if you ever want something different, you'll tell me. I'll support any decision you make." "I promise." Adrian took a deep breath, looking like he wanted to say something more, but hesitating. Lauren waited. "I know there's a big difference between our lives," he began slowly. "I know you've been through so much, and that maybe this is completely inappropriate of me. But I have to be honest. Over the past few months, I've come to admire you in a way that goes beyond gratitude. Your strength, your kindness, your dedication to Ryan, everything about you inspires me to be a better person." Lauren felt her heart race. "Mr. Montgomery, please let me finish. I'm not asking for anything right now. It wouldn't be fair. But I want you to know that when I look to the future, when I think about rebuilding my life, you're in that picture. If one day you feel the same, or if one day you're ready to think about something beyond friendship, I'll be here, waiting. No pressure, no expectations, just waiting." Lauren looked at him, seeing for the first time not the millionaire boss, but the vulnerable man who had been betrayed, who had almost lost his mother, who was trying to rebuild his life from scratch. And in his blue eyes, she saw something she hadn't seen in anyone's eyes for a long time. Genuine hope, true affection, deep respect. "I don't know what the future holds," she said honestly. "I'm scared that this is a fantasy, that our realities are too incompatible. But I also feel something when I'm near you, something I haven't felt in a long time, and maybe with time we can find out what that means. Together, no rush." Adrian smiled, and it was the most genuine and joyful smile Lauren had ever seen on him. "No rush," he repeated. "We have all the time in the world." And so, under the New York stars, two wounded but hopeful souls found comfort in each other. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. It was something more real, more complex, more beautiful. It was the promise that even after the darkest storms, the sun shines again. It was the certainty that making the right choice always pays off, even when the path is difficult. It was the proof that families are built not just with blood, but with love, trust, and courage. Eleanor, watching from her second-floor window, smiled to herself. Her son had finally found someone worthy of his love, someone who saw him as a human being, not a bank account, someone who had proven her loyalty in the most extreme way possible. The Upper East Side mansion no longer held dark secrets. The doors on the third floor remained open, transformed into welcoming guest rooms. Sunlight flooded every corner. Laughter echoed through the hallways. And for the first time in a very, very long time, that house was truly a home. The following years brought more changes and growth. Ryan grew up strong and healthy, becoming an intelligent and kind young man. Eleanor continued to give piano lessons until she was 80, touching the lives of dozens of students with her kindness and wisdom. Adrian restructured his company, delegating more responsibilities and spending more time with the people he loved. And Lauren. Lauren finally allowed her heart to open again. It wasn't fast, it wasn't easy, but it was real. She and Adrian built a relationship based on mutual respect, on earned trust, on a love that grew slowly but with deep roots. They didn't have a perfect ending, they had a true one, with challenges, with growth, with difficult moments and wonderful moments, exactly as life should be. And every time Lauren passed the third floor, she remembered Eleanor locked in that dark room. She remembered the fear, the courage, the decision to do what was right, even when everything seemed to be against her. And she knew she had made the right decision. She would always know. Because in the end, it's not the material things that define a life. It's not the money, not the status, not the power. It's the choices we make when no one is looking. It's the moments we decide to be brave instead of safe. It's the times we choose truth over convenience. And Lauren Miller, a simple housekeeper who became so much more, had made those choices. And in doing so, she didn't just save Eleanor. She saved herself. She saved Ryan. And she showed the world that heroes don't wear capes. Sometimes they wear simple uniforms and have hands calloused from hard work. But their hearts are pure gold, and their actions change lives forever.